Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The emergency lights along Outpost Aurealis. 9 flickered like tired fireflies as Jace Renner trudged down the main corridor, boots scuffing against the gritty metal floor. He'd patched the generators twice that week, but the power drains kept worsening. The entire facility felt like an old man taking his final, rattling breaths. 3 months, Jace muttered to himself. 3 months without a supply ship and counting. His ration pack hung lighter at his belt with every passing day. The hydroponic gardens were failing. The water purification system was down to half efficiency, and morale among the dozen stranded workers had sunk to levels only measurable with a microscope. He reached into his pocket to make sure the small foil-wrapped cube was still there, his last piece of chocolate. Back on Earth, it would have been nothing. Just a tiny indulgence he'd toss into a lunch bag or grab at a vending machine without thinking twice. But here, on a dying outpost hovering above a barren moon, it was treasure, a reminder that somewhere sunlight still warmed oceans and children still licked melted cocoa from their fingers. Tonight, he planned to eat it slowly, maybe while replaying old holo videos of his family. It was the one comfort he had left. But that plan evaporated the moment he turned the corner into mining Corridor 7. Something moved at the far end, small, hunched, shivering. Jace froze, instinctively reaching for the flashlight strapped to his vest. The beam cut through the dim haze of dust motes, illuminating a figure no taller than a child. She stood completely still at first, almost blending into the shadows. Her cloak was made of a strange, iridescent fabric that shimmered like star reflections on black water. Beneath the hood, 2 enormous eyes, luminescent and shifting between deep purple and soft gold, watched him with a mixture of fear and longing. Jace's breath caught. She wasn't human. Her skin, visible at the edges of her sleeves, held faint swirling patterns like nebula clouds stretching across a night sky. Every so often, those markings pulsed softly, dimly as if fading. She pressed a trembling hand against her midsection. That gesture, that universal gesture, he knew all too well. She was hungry, desperately. Jace lifted both hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl flinched backward, her bare feet skidding against the metal floor. But she didn't run. Her eyes dipped toward his belt, toward the ration pouch clipped there. He felt his stomach twist. She must have been watching him long before he noticed her. "Are you alone?" he asked gently. No answer, only cautious breathing that echoed faintly in the hollow corridor. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. The foil glinted. Her eyes widened, wider than any human eyes could. Jace unwrapped the chocolate slowly, letting her see each movement. The sweet scent drifted upward, a scent so rare on Aurealis 9 that it seemed almost sacred. "I don't have much left," he said quietly, "but you look like you need this more than I do." She stepped forward 1 trembling inch, then another, drawn to the chocolate like a fragile moth to warmth. Jace extended his hand. Her fingers, cool and feather-light, touched his palm as she took the small piece. She examined it as though it were a jewel lost from some ancient crown, then lifted it to her nose, sniffing softly. Her lips parted. She took a tiny bite. For a moment, everything was still. Then the nebula markings on her skin flared, bright gold, bursting outward in dazzling spirals of light. The corridor filled with a blinding radiance. Jace stumbled back, shielding his eyes. The air vibrated. The floor hummed. Somewhere beyond reception, a deep, resonant tone echoed, like a cosmic bell being struck for the first time in millennia. And then, a surge of energy exploded from the girl in a sphere of shimmering light. Jace screamed. The world dissolved. And before he could even breathe, everything went white. Sound returned before sight, an echoing hum. Soft at first, then swelling into a full-body vibration that made Jace feel as if his bones were resonating like tuning forks. When his vision finally cleared, he gasped. He was no longer in mining Corridor 7. Gone were the rusted walls, the flickering lights, the drifting dust of Aurealis 9. In their place stretched an enormous chamber that defied every law of architecture he knew. The floor beneath him was a smooth obsidian surface, reflecting distant stars that shouldn't have been there. The walls curved upward into impossibly high arches made of translucent crystal, pulsing with veins of white and violet energy. Floating platforms drifted gently through the air, held up by nothing, rotating as if part of silent celestial dance. The temperature was crisp, yet strangely comfortable, carrying the scent of ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. And at the center of it all, the alien girl hovered above the floor, cocooned in spiraling helixes of golden light. She wasn't trembling anymore. Her face, once drawn and exhausted from hunger, now glowed with serene strength. The nebula patterns across her skin swirled with a vigor that reminded Jace of solar storms captured on deep space satellites. Where his voice cracked, he tried again. "Where am I?" A gentle chime echoed overhead, like a single drop of water falling into a still pond. Then they appeared. Figures coalesced from drifting stardust, tall, humanoid silhouettes whose forms shifted like fluid galaxies. Their eyes were swirling cores of brilliant light, ancient yet warm, powerful yet sorrowful. Jace staggered back instinctively. One of the beings stepped forward, or rather, glided, for its feet never touched the floor. When it spoke, it didn't speak aloud. Its voice filled his mind, resonant and harmonious, as though a symphony of distant stars whispered in unison. "Fear not, Jace Renner." He flinched. "How do you know my name?" The being's light intensified slightly. "You have crossed into the astral sanctum. Only those of significance may be brought here." Jace swallowed. "Significance? I just gave a kid a piece of chocolate. I didn't sign up for whatever this is." The stardust figures glanced at the hovering girl. The child carried within her the dormant essence of the star-born heir. Her power was sealed generations ago, hidden until the universe itself recognized an act of pure selflessness. Jace blinked, struggling to make sense of it. "You're telling me the chocolate unlocked her powers?" The beings shimmered, their forms rippling like reflections in disturbed water. "Not the chocolate. The choice. In giving your last comfort to a stranger without expectation of return, you reignited the seal placed upon her. Only a heart unburdened by greed or fear could have done so." Jace's cheeks warmed. "That doesn't make me special. Anyone would have. Few would have," the beings intoned gently. "Even fewer in a time of famine and scarcity." The golden spirals around the girl collapsed inward, and she gently lowered to the floor. When her feet touched the surface, the light faded enough for her true form to emerge more clearly. She stepped toward him, slow, cautious, yet filled with new certainty. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but layered with strange, melodious echo. "My name is Lyriel," she said, "and you saved me." Jace exhaled shakily. "I didn't mean to save anybody. I didn't even know you were this." Lyriel smiled faintly, as though she understood. But before she could speak again, the floor vibrated. A sharp, mechanical screech reverberated above them. The crystalline walls darkened slightly, like a storm cloud drifting over the sun. The stardust beings exchanged looks, rapid, alarmed flickers of light. "What's happening?" Jace asked. The chamber trembled again, harder. The beings turned their luminous eyes skyward. "They have found us." Lyriel's glow dimmed. Fear, raw and familiar, returned her eyes. Jace's pulse spiked. Who found us?" The answer came not from the beings, but from a sudden roar overhead as the crystalline ceiling split open like a blooming metallic flower. Dark shapes descended, sleek, angular, bristling with weaponry. Their red optics pulsed like hunting predators. Lyriel grabbed Jace's hand, her voice urgent and trembling. "The Star Hunters," she whispered. "They've come for me." And before Jace could react, the drones unleashed a piercing shriek and dive-bombed the chamber. The hunt had begun. The first drone hit the chamber with enough force to rattle Jace's teeth. Shards of crystalline architecture rained down, dissolving into harmless sparks before reaching the floor. The stardust beings reacted instantly, their forms elongating and twisting as they erected shimmering barriers of cosmic energy. But the Star Hunters were prepared. A volley of red disruptor beams tore across the chamber. Where they struck the barriers, the stardust beings flickered violently, their shapes momentarily distorting, as if their very existence wavered. Jace instinctively stepped in front of Lyriel, though, rationally, he knew she was probably the one who could protect him. Even so, his body moved faster than his thoughts. "Stay behind me," he shouted. Lyriel shook her head. "No, you stay behind me." Another drone swooped low, its metallic wings slicing the air with a shrill hum. Lyriel reached out with a flick of her fingers. A pulse of golden energy shot forward, catching the drone mid-flight and slamming it into a floating platform. The platform shattered. So did the drone. Jay stared at the debris. "Okay, so you can handle yourself." Lyriel's glow flickered, dimmer than before. "Not for long. My powers were only just awakened. They're unstable." The stardust beings drifted beside them, their voices overlapping in an urgent chorus. "You must go to the core, Lyriel. Only the Starfire engine can stabilize your energy before the hunters capture you." Lyriel nodded, tightening her grip on Jace's hand. "I know the way," she said, "but the path has changed." "The what?" Jace sputtered, stumbling as she pulled him toward a corridor that hadn't existed moments before. "The astral sanctum rebuilds itself constantly," she said breathlessly. "It reacts to threats. To protect me." Jace risked a look back. The drones were multiplying. Dozens now poured through the ceiling breach, each one scanning, tracking, locking onto Lyriel's radiant signature. The stardust beings fought valiantly, shaping cosmic shields, launching bursts of energy, but they were being overwhelmed. Every disruptor beam dimmed them further, blurring their outlines. One being flickered so heavily that light bled through its body like a cracked lantern. "Go." Starborn Air whispered, "We will hold them." Lyriel hesitated, agonizingly, for half a heartbeat. Then she pulled Jace faster. "Come." They sprinted down the shape-shifting corridor. Walls of luminous crystal bent and stretched ahead of them, forming a path. The floor pulsed beneath their feet, lighting the way like a beating heart. Explosions echoed behind them. The sanctum trembled. A section of wall exploded open as two drones tore through, their rotors screeching. "Incoming!" Jace yelled. Lyriel skidded to a halt, thrusting her hands forward. Nothing happened. Her glow sputtered like a dying sparkler. Fear flashed in her eyes. "My power! It's burning too quickly." The drones fired. Jace didn't think. He grabbed a fallen shard of crystal from the floor, long, spear-like, and swung it wildly. It connected with a satisfying crack, knocking the first drone off course. It spiraled into a wall, embedding itself with sparks. The second drone lunged for Lyriel. "No!" Jace threw himself at it, using every ounce of strength he had. The impact knocked the wind from his lungs, but it also sent the drone crashing to the ground. It flailed, sensors glitching. Lyriel stared at him in shock. You protected me." Jace coughed, clutching his ribs. "What? You think you're the only one allowed to do heroic stuff?" Her expression softened, but only for a moment. The corridor split open ahead of them, revealing a vast spherical chamber suspended in a star-filled void. "The core," Lyriel breathed. "We're here." They stepped inside. Jace felt as though he'd walked into the center of the sun. The chamber pulsed with raw, radiant power. At its heart floated a colossal orb of blazing starfire, bound by 3 dark metallic rings that rotated with ancient, deliberate purpose. The air vibrated with cosmic energy, pulling at his skin and hair like a gentle tide. Lyriel took a step toward the orb. A drone burst through the wall behind them, screeching. It fired a tether of crackling red energy. The beam wrapped around Lyriel's wrist and yanked her backward, dragging her across the floor. "Lyriel." Jace sprinted toward her. She struggled, her free hand glowing weakly. "I can't break it." Jace dove at the drone, tackling it with every ounce of adrenaline left in his body. He slammed his fist into its optical sensor, then jammed the crystal shard into a rotating joint. Sparks exploded. The drone released the tether and collapsed in a smoking heap. Lyriel scrambled to her feet, clutching her arm. Her glow flickered erratically, almost painfully. "Jace, thank you," she whispered. He nodded, panting. "Go. Do what you have to do." With trembling resolve, she reached out and pressed her palm against the chains of the Starfire engine. The chamber stilled. The rings halted. The Starfire orb pulsed once, then erupted in a blinding burst of radiance. The universe itself seemed to inhale, and then everything changed. The burst of light swallowed the chamber, and Jace with it. For a moment he felt weightless, suspended in a void where time itself seemed to hesitate. The blinding radiance softened into a slow, rippling glow, like sunlight diffused through deep water. He floated, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to think. Then sound returned. A deep, resonant hum pulsed through the chamber of the core. Jace fell to his knees as gravity snapped back around him. His vision blurred, but he could make out drifting sparks of golden dust, like tiny stars settling on the floor. The once violent drones now lay scattered and lifeless, dark metal husks that no longer pulsed with malicious red light. The core itself had fractured open, its bindings melted into liquid streaks of shimmering silver. The central orb was gone. In its place floated a girl. Lyriel, but not the frightened, starving child he'd first met. Not even the awakening starborn heir he'd seen in the astral sanctum. She was something more now, radiant, ethereal, almost divine. Her feet hovered inches above the ground, her hair drifting upward as though suspended in a gentle cosmic breeze. The marks on her skin glowed like constellations, each swirling pattern telling a story older than civilization itself. When she looked at Jace, her eyes were galaxies. "Lyriel?" he whispered. Her voice echoed with the harmonies of distant stars. "Your world is safe." The crystalline walls of the sanctum shifted, opening outward like petals of a celestial flower. Through the widening gaps, Jace saw something impossible. Orialis, 9 was transforming. The barren moon's surface, once gray, cracked, and lifeless, now shimmered with emerald growths. Vines of bioluminescent flora crawled across the terrain, blooming into radiant blossoms that cast gentle light into the sky. Streams of pure water carved glowing paths through the rock, and the once thin atmosphere pulsed with new energy. The outpost domes flickered back to life. Lights came on. Generators roared awake. People emerged from hiding, wide-eyed, stunned, and speechless. How is this happening? Jace asked, his voice barely audible. Lyriel descended gracefully and stood before him. The cosmic glow around her softened, making her appear once again like the young girl he had met, yet undeniably changed. "The core was a seed," she said, "a fragment of my people's power. By activating it, I restored what was lost and gave life to a place that had long been forgotten." She looked deeply at him, warm, grateful, and possibly old. "And it was your choice that made this possible." Jace shook his head. "I didn't do much. You gave what you did not have to spare," she said softly. "One act of kindness in a universe grown cold can shift the balance of entire worlds." Before he could respond, the stardust beings appeared again, their forms more stable than before. They bowed to Lyriel. "Starborn Queen," they intoned, "your lineage is restored." Lyriel's eyes flickered in sorrow. "I am the last of my kind," she said quietly. "The last, but not alone," the beings replied gently. She turned to Jace, and her expression brightened with the softest smile. "I must return. My people, what remains of them, need me. The cosmos has been waiting for its queen." A shimmering portal materialized behind her, swirling with blues, purples, and golds. Jace's chest tightened. "Will I ever see you again?" Lyriel tilted her head, considering him with ancient wisdom wrapped in the innocence of youth. "The universe is vast, Jace Renner, but stories that begin with compassion rarely end." She hesitated, then stepped closer. She reached out and took his hand, small, warm, infinitely powerful. "Where I go, your act will be remembered. Across galaxies, they will speak of the human who shared his last piece of chocolate and awakened a queen." Jace laughed weakly, wiping his eyes. "That sounds ridiculous." "Perhaps," she said brightly, "but truth often does." Her glow intensified again as she released his hand. "Goodbye, Jace." Goodbye, Lyriel. She stepped backward into the portal. The swirling lights wrapped around her, lifting her weightlessly. Her silhouette, small, yet impossibly important, drifted deeper until only her smile remained. Then she vanished. The portal closed with a soft sigh, leaving Jay standing alone in the chamber of the core. Moments later, the workers of Borealis, 9 rush inside, their faces pale with shock, their voices tumbling into each other as they try to understand what happened. Jace told them the truth. He didn't embellish it, didn't dramatize it, didn't even know how to. And still, the others stared at him like he had rewritten the rules of the universe. Reports spread, rumors flourished. News channels across the system lit up with impossible stories. Freighters rerouted to witness the reborn moon. Soon, whole planets whispered the tale. The galaxy had been saved by a starving alien girl, and the human who gave her his last piece of chocolate. And the shock of what happened next? Well, that was only the beginning.